Ball flight laws, they're really the core information to teaching golf is how does the ball fly? Not all of us have access to launch monitors or different devices that can measure speed and spin. So we, over the years, we've been trained to result to watching where the ball is traveling in order to make corrections. But the unique thing about ball flight is one person's desired ball flight might be your next student's nemesis. They want to get rid of what somebody else is doing. And that's one of the things to understand is not everybody's trying to hit the ball dead straight. Maybe they should be, but they're not. So we're going to dive into what happens with ball flight and how we go about diagnosing things and understanding the ball flight so that we can make error correction and detection. But understanding of the ball flight. Whoops. So this is the neat thing for the people that have been here for a long time. Because of launch monitors and high-speed cameras, we've really had some misconceptions. I remember I took the course in 2001. Dave Reed and Bill Bath were my instructors, and there was 18 or 19 other people in the course. And they basically said at the time that the hands create the path, which creates the initial direction, and the club face creates the curvature. And what we've learned is, that it's more complex than just where your hands are and where the club face is. But going back to the ball flight, it composes of two things really: the initial direction and curvature. And one of the reasons, again, why we're doing ball flight is our first real kick at continuing education, is that the home studies that do come in and the exams that we're marking, ball flight is probably one area that's not being done particularly well. It's not understood and it's not explained correctly. So I always tell people when they are taking the course, ball flight is the initial direction, where it starts, and then where it goes from there, where it curves. It's not club face at impact, and it's not the path of the club head through impact. That is what creates initial direction and curvature, because we're talking about where the golf ball is, not the golf club. So, and that's what we're looking for, is where the golf ball starts and where it finishes. So now we know what really happens, and we're gonna keep hitting the right screen. The position of the club face, there's five basic things that make up ball flight. The position of the club face at impact, the path of the club face at impact, the angle of approach, and the centeredness of contact in the club head speed. So those five things we understand will determine initial direction and curvature. So the club face at impact can either be, and I don't even like square, open and close. It can either be square or pointed to the right or pointed to the left. Because if you're a left-handed golfer or a right-handed golfer, open is opposite and close is opposite. So the club face at impact, kind of neat. It creates curvature, but it also is the major factor in where the golf ball starts. So that's kind of news. It used to be, well, the path will be more determinant. And we're going to see in a couple of slides here that the golf ball always starts closer to the club face angle than it does the path. So then the path, basically we can have a few different paths: inside out, square path, or an outside in, going across. Or so some people struggle with an inside out path just as much as you would see like in an over the top type swing, creating an outside in. So this is the basic principle. So if you can see um, the orange line, and this is where golf ball flight laws get complicated. If the orange line was the target, um, the golf ball in this case is starting on the blue line, it's starting to the right of the target and coming back. People misunderstand the target line is really not an important line. The important part is the golf club face to the path, which is important. So whenever you have a deviation like this, you see the face is pointed, in this case, left of the path. That means the golf ball eventually is going to turn to the left. Okay. But it also means the golf ball is going to start slightly left of where the path is. Okay. Because of that club face override. The club face becomes more important than the path. So the ball is going to start off on this case to the right a little bit, right of the target line for sure, because the path is going so far right, but it's still not going to start where the path is because the club face is actually pointed left. So that's why in this case, we have a golf club traveling to the right, a face pointed left of the path. We get curvature back to the center, or in this case, back to the left. Um, Anything to add to that, Jeff?
Nope. Nope.
Oh, really good.
It's that combination, right? It's the combination of the face angled to the club path, right? Those are the two kind of musts in our ball flights, right?
So here's an example. We got Phil Mickelson, because you're going to see lots of left-handed stuff tonight. So if anybody's anti-lefty, they're gonna be sadly disappointed. Uh, so Phil's hitting his typical little draw here. You can see his club is pointed way, or his path is going way out to the left, so he doesn't hook it. So he hits his nice high draw. So his club face or his club path is going way left. The face angle is pointed to the right, which creates the draw. But I want you to look really closely at the yellow line. Is it closer to the red line or the blue line? And that's what you need to understand is the club face is so much more important than the actual path. So if you get somebody hitting the ball and they're pulling it right off the bat, chances are the club face is pointed in that direction a little bit too. So that's just trying to influence that information about the club path. So now we're going to get into some data. Okay, so today I went on the simulator and I was able to generate some different shots. So you can see data nowadays is so important, but it also helps to understand. So we've got a slice or a fade pattern. And of course, I'm a left-handed golfer, so this is why you're getting left-handed data. Um, so you can see down in the bottom, there's two pictures. There's a picture of the golf ball's ball flight. The first one at the bottom is a flat version, and the second one would be a crosscut version of the trajectory of how high it's going to go. So you can see that as a lefty, this one started out roughly on line and then sliced off to the left. And in this case, it was 18 yards left. So this was a pretty big slice. So why did that happen? So if we go up to the top above the pictures of where it's going, not necessarily in the backspin, but the top, it says outside in path 1 degree. Okay, so we have a little bit of a 1 degree across with an open face, 1.3 degrees. So at 98 miles an hour, that golf shot is going to be a slice, and it's going to create quite a slice, 18 yards. Okay. So in ball flight, laws, our path is out to in, and then the club face in this case is pointed 1.3 degrees open, which would be to the left. So, any questions on that?
So look how minuscule those degrees are, right? That's the fascinating thing about this, right? And how tiny that path is in relationship to the face, and you add the speed, and then I'm sure Mark will go to that other slide about how the ball reacts to it. But we're
Right.
dealing here with little numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So um, knowing your ball flight laws, when they hit that slice, you know that the club face is open. Like that's the simple reality to it. Okay, so now we're going to look at the opposite shot. Okay, and this one, it was with an 8 iron, and this wasn't a great big hook, but it was inside out 3 degrees, and so this is where data sometimes gets difficult. Um, it says the club face is open 1.5 degree, but in actual fact, it's closed because again, it's open 1.5 degree relative to the target line and not to the path. So you can see the path at the ball beside that was 2 degrees. So it's actually closed half a degree. Okay, does everybody understand that? So it reads open 1.5, but the number right before it says left 2 degrees. So that means it's still closed uh, half a degree. And that's why this one's a baby draw and it was only 7.6 yards offline, a little bit higher, and obviously higher backspin. Um, so that's the opposite. So we had the slice, and then we have the draw, and then a relatively straight shot. And I would have been all morning trying to hit a straight shot, so that's why it's relatively straight. And in this case, my it just happened that the out to in and a little bit of a club face being open produced pretty much the straightest shot that I was going to be able to do without still being filming these results. So, but straight can be caused, and that's one of the hard things about ball flight laws. As you see, if the path is slightly off and the club face is slightly open or slightly closed, you can produce a straight shot. So it's not just meaning that you had a perfect straight and square club face that produces a straight shot. So that's something to keep in the back of your mind. They might still be cutting across it a little bit, but their club face is as squared up, and you get a straight shot with very little curvature. So
Right. And I think it's important that everybody out there knows, right? How many combinations are there to hit a straight shot? Is there one or two combination, or are there thousands? Right? Probably thousands.
yeah.
Right. And again, if you teach with this kind of technology and data, we have to make sure that our students aren't trying to take the club straight back linear and through the ball linear to trying to achieve those perfect numbers. That's where people get so messed up. So just be careful if relating this data. As you know, there's lots of different ways to hit the ball pretty straight.
Go on to the angle of approach. So when we get to talking about the ball flight, obviously we have to recognize trajectory. So far we've talked about golf balls that are flying, and we haven't talked about it going up in the air. So the angle of approach becomes very important because it puts more spin on the golf ball. It changes the spin on the golf ball. It changes the distance it will travel. So in this diagram right here, you can see that the bottom of the arc is marked where the red perpendicular line goes across basically where the club's traveling. So in the first one, the golfer would be hitting up on the golf ball, and the second one, the golfer would be hitting down on the golf ball. And both of those things are going to create much different spin. So just a side note, when would we ever hit up on the golf ball? Anybody have an idea?
I believe on an uphill lie or a side hill lie.
I would say no.
Preferably never.
No, I would say no. Well, this is a harder question than I thought.
Bunker shot, maybe?
No,
No.
you want to hit up on the golf ball. Who's Tim's iPad says
Yeah.
off a tee
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was with the driver.
with the driver. Whoever
Right.
says with the driver is correct because it would be off a tee. And there's one other time we would hit up on the golf ball.
Putts.
Yeah, putting.
Putting.
Putting, driver and putter. So if we have an ascending angle of attack, we would want to change that. We would want to change the ball position unless it's hitting up on it with a driver or in a putting stroke to get the ball running end over end. So trajectory is basically having the golf ball travel with altitude. And it's usually a reflection of the hands being either behind the club head or ahead of the club head. And we're going to get higher or lower depending on where the hands are at impact. So this is some interesting thing about angle of attack. These are two wedges I hit back to back, and neither one of them were too bad, but the first one, the key number in this shot is for an 85-yard shot. You can see the RPMs of backspin was 86.46. Okay, so that sounds pretty good, but you'll see the club head speed 68 miles an hour, and it says the ball speed 68 miles an hour. So this was me in a what I would say a fairly neutral setup. So what I would teach my students that are 10 handicap and up, I'd have the ball in the middle of my stance. The next slide is what I would teach 9 handicaps and below. And you see now it went 95 yards. The ball speed jumped up to 74. The club head speed is actually less. And I have 10,000 RPMs. So I didn't hit a number of shots. I hit 2 wedges this morning. They were the first 2 shots I hit, and I just captured this data. And one was from the center of the stance that we just saw, and then we moved to changing the ball position to behind the center of stance. And why this is important is we all have days where people come to us and say, how do we spin the ball? How do we spin the ball? How do we spin the ball? Well, first is you get a good wedge. Second is you get a good ball. Third is you learn to put the ball farther back in your stance. And to me, this is really neat because I didn't hit it harder. And yet when you see that backspin number go really, really high, it's pretty exciting. The other thing that's neat is look at the launch angle. So in the very bottom on the left, you can see the launch angle is 27 degrees. We'll go back to the other one. It was 33 degrees. So obviously when you put the ball back in your stance, it's going to come out lower. So the launch angle is going to go lower, but you're going to get more spin, like I said, like I showed you. The other thing that happens with me, and I think it would happen with most golfers, is because the ball is being hit sooner in time, my inside out path is magnified. So you can see this ball went pretty much straight left. It was only 5 yards left, but that's where its natural tendency is to go when I put it back in my stance. So ball flight laws, you want to do some spin, you want to change your wedge game, experiment with the ball position going backwards, and you'll be shocked at how much spin you can generate. Again, this isn't what you teach the person that comes in and says, Jeff, I'm here to take my lesson. I don't know whether I'm right-handed or left-handed. You're not going to say, okay, we'll flip the wedge in the back of your stance and see if we can spin them back on the putting green here. No, this is for that kind of I wouldn't even call it elite level, but you're getting there. This is something that you experiment with the better players, and being able to see data is always pretty cool.
Right. So can I just add there, Mark? So
Yeah.
this is low point, right? And everybody's low point is going to be a little bit different. So when we go into our sort of styles of learning and making practice is to, have a set ball position in the middle, identify where that is with the golfer, and then, you move that ball one ball diameter back in his or her stance and try to get them to repeat a swing. And then again, have a look at the trajectory of that. If you have a nice short game area and you can really watch, if you're not having sort of launch monitors, and then experiment, put a ball a little more forward of the center ball. So low point as to how people move creates a different dynamic loft at impact.
All right, so we're gonna jump on to the quality of contact. So this is important too. I've seen it over the years with students more so than our teachers, but where somebody hits a few shots and they come to you, and the problem of their life is they slice everything, and all of a sudden they hit the ball dead straight, but meanwhile their whatever club they hit 3 inches behind the golf ball, and the ground squared it up and the ball went straight. So they're like, oh, Mark, you fixed me, I hit it straight. But the reality is that ball flight is an anomaly, and you cannot get data from a ball flight that wasn't hit with quality. So if you
drop kicking it.
Yeah. So if you don't have quality contact, as an instructor, you're going to go nuts if you're referring to ball flight laws. Okay. So that's why this is important. If you don't have solid contact, don't judge the flight of the golf ball, because like if it hits off the hosel, it might not necessarily be what you think it was. So and if again off the toe or off the heel, or if they hit it off the top of the golf club, I've seen that and denting golf clubs in. You have to have quality contact before ball flight laws are important. So D-plane was never part of the ball flight laws up until maybe 2013 or so, Jeff, when something like that, eh?
Yeah.
And we started spending a little bit of time on D-plane. We do a little bit more at the master's level with the D-plane, but basically it's the third dimension of ball flight, where we have the launch, and as we were just talking about, the spin axis, and then the initial direction and curvature, all combined into one measurable golf shot, really. So the D-plane takes it from a two-dimensional ball headed straight turns right or turns left, or ball headed right turns left, or Now we have it ball heads high or low, and turns or headed right or left or turns. You know, you've seen the diagram so many times. So our third dimension, you can see there's lots of data in here in this particular diagram. We're going to skip to the next one because it becomes a little bit easier. So here we see the club face, and it's not left-handed, so it should be easier to see. The club path is pointed to the right. The face is pointed to the left of that. And what I like is it's fairly accurate. The ball flight, as you can see in the black arrow, which is turning like an airplane.
So here's my model, right?
Yeah.
Right. So take a golf ball, put a couple drill holes in it, stick some tees in it, right? And so again, just to sort of go back, there is no really side spin. We like to call it spin, access, or tilt. So depending on how the club face and path go, it imparts that spin access on it, whether it's to the left or to the right, or if it's up and down. Okay.
So we got this spin axis is curving to the left. I'm terrible with rights and lefts, but it's turning to the left. You can see the black line again is closest to the face angle. So it starts a little bit to the right of the face angle because the club path is skewed that far away that it can't start exactly where the face is pointed, but it starts closer to the face angle than the path. And then the launch is basically determined by the loft of the golf club. Oops, hitting the wrong computer. So here's another D plane, and this is where it gets all confusing. Just like the diagrams I was showing you, the face is 10 degrees open, but open to what? Open to the target line. So that really means it's 10 degrees. It doesn't matter what it is relative to the target line. The path is 20 degrees in to out, which means relative to the target line, so if we go backwards, the face is actually 10 degrees closed relative to the path. And then it gets into weighted impact and blah, 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 blah. But what we need to know is the face is pointed 10 degrees closed relative to the path. We're going to get a draw. That's as simple as that. Any questions on that? So this is just a visual of what Jeff was showing us with his ball flight ball with the and of course everybody knows how an airplane tilts. So now we talk about adding club head speed. So the lack of the speed magnifies the variation of the club face angle and affects the initial direction. Increased speed magnifies the variation of the path. So we're going to see that here with a couple of shots. So this is a low club head speed, and this is back to my spin and wedge, but it's still got a low club head speed. So the initial direction is off target right away because of a slower golf club versus having a lot of side spin on it, again because there's less club head speed. So now we're going to look at a driver club head speed, and you can see the initial direction. It's starting out right down the target line, and if you can see these numbers, 109 miles an hour with 156 ball speed, with very, very minimal at impact. So I'm 1.6 degrees closed, and I'm 28 yards offline, 28 yards of curvature. So that shows you when you add that club head speed, you're going to get the big time curvature, and the path not so much. So if we go back and we look at it, the initial direction was off and the curvature wasn't with low club head speed. High club head speed is the opposite. The club face angle is the greatest determinant of where the golf ball is going to travel. And it's going to have the initial direction is always going to be closest to the club face angle, but skewed to the direction of the path. The path, the initial direction increases. Well, it says with higher club head speed, and it should be actually the opposite. With lower, the path of the club head should increase with lower. So I'm going to have to change that. And curvature is created by having, obviously, if your path and your club head are not perpendicular to each other, you get curvature. So if you have a club that's pointed this way or this way, you're going to get curvature eventually. So things to remember. The ball flight is not about the golf club, it's about the ball. And the ball has three things that we look for: the initial direction, where it curves, and how high it flies. So the trajectory. And then from there, we recognize that if the ball's not hit solid, then we are going to be in a position that we say that is not important, and you can't fool physics. Next month we're going to reconvene. If you guys want anything in particular, send us an email between now and the first week of April and say, hey, I'd really like to see a seminar on this, and Jeff and I'll see if we can put something together to make it worthwhile. I think 7:00 at night on a Thursday night. I know everybody's going to be teaching here in the next couple months, but
Yeah, it might not be good for me. And
no. So we might have to look at that some timing.
Friday night.
Friday night. Friday night.
That's our play night.
We'll see. We'll do
figure
what we
it out.
can do. Thursday nights might not work, but
We'd have to do it from the range.
well, and that's a reality. That's what I intend to do later in the year. Is
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
do it outdoors. Hope the heck the internet connection works.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks
Thanks,
again, Mark.
guys.
Thank
Thanks a
you,
lot.
guys.
Yeah.
Nice
Hey.
meeting everyone.
Good to see a few of you folks out there.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks,
Sonny,
Mark.
everybody.
See you Monday, Sonny.
Take care.
Absolutely. Thanks.